Alone at work one night. Marcus Reynolds had been working at Hartwell and Associates accounting firm for 3 years, and he'd never been asked to stay this late before. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Friday, and he sat alone on the 14th floor of the downtown high-rise, finishing the quarterly audit that absolutely had to be completed by Monday morning. Just a few more hours, Marcus muttered to himself, taking another sip of his fourth coffee. The break room coffee maker had been his only companion since everyone else left around 9 p.m. Even the cleaning crew had finished their rounds by 10:30. The office was eerily quiet at night. During the day, it buzzed with phones ringing, conversations echoing, the hum of printers and keyboards creating a constant soundtrack. But now, in the dead of night, every small sound was amplified. There were the HVAC system, the occasional creak of the building settling, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Marcus was deep into a spreadsheet when he heard it. The distinct sound of a phone ringing. Not his desk phone, but somewhere across the office. He looked up, frowning. The ringing stopped after 4 rings, went to voicemail presumably. Probably just a late-night call rolling to someone's extension, Marcus reasoned, returning to his work. 5 minutes later, it rang again. Same phone, same cadence. 4 rings, then silence. Marcus stood up and walked toward the sound. It was coming from the eastern side of the office, near the senior partner's area. He walked down the aisle between cubicles, his footsteps muffled by industrial carpet. The phone at Janet Morrison's desk was lit up, the call light blinking red. Marcus checked the caller ID display. Internal. Extension 1447. Extension 1447. Marcus didn't recognize it. He pulled out the company directory from his phone and searched. There was no extension 1447 listed. The phone stopped ringing. Marcus stood there, feeling foolish or being unnerved by a phone call. But something about it felt wrong. Who would be calling from an internal extension at midnight? He returned to his desk, trying to focus on the audit, but his concentration was broken. He found himself listening, waiting for the phone to ring again. It did at 12:15 a.m. This time, it rang 6 times before stopping. Marcus didn't get up to check. He told himself it was probably just a system glitch, a misdirected call, something technical and boring and completely explainable. But at 12:30 a.m., his own desk phone rang. Marcus jumped, his hand knocking over his coffee cup. Brown liquid spread across papers, but he barely noticed, staring at his phone. The caller ID showed. Internal, extension 1447. With a trembling hand, Marcus picked up the receiver. Hello. Nothing. Just silence on the other end. Not even the sound of breathing or ambient noise. Complete, absolute silence. Hello. Marcus repeated. Who is this? A voice answered, not quite male, not quite female, with a strange hollow quality like speaking from the bottom of a well. You shouldn't be here. Marcus's blood went cold. Who is this? This isn't funny. You shouldn't be here. Not tonight. Not alone. The voice was flat, emotionless. Leave now. Listen, if this is Dave from IT playing a prank. Extension 1447. Do you know where that is, Marcus? The use of his name made Marcus's stomach clench. How do you know my name? Do you know where extension 1447 is? The voice repeated. There is no extension 1447. I checked the directory. Yes, there is. 14th floor, northwest corner. Room 1447. But you can't see it, can you? They sealed it off 30 years ago, after what happened to Daniel Hartwell. Marcus's mouth went dry. Daniel Hartwell was the company founder. He died in the 1990s, but Marcus had never heard any details about his death. What happened to Daniel Hartwell? Marcus asked, though part of him didn't want to know. He worked late, just like you. Alone, just like you. And he found out what happens in this building after midnight. What's been here longer than the building itself. What will always be here. The line went dead. Marcus sat frozen, his heart pounding. This had to be a prank. Someone was messing with him. But who? And how did they know he'd be here alone tonight? He pulled up a browser and searched Daniel Hartwell death. The results were sparse. A few obituaries from 1993, mentioning he died unexpectedly at age 52. One newspaper article mentioned that he'd been found in his office, but gave no other details. Marcus heard a sound that made his blood freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps walking through the office. Not the soft pad of shoes on carpet, but heavy footfalls, like boots on a hard floor. Yet the floor was carpeted. The footsteps were getting closer. Marcus's rational mind screamed that there had to be an explanation. Maybe the night security guard was making rounds. But the building security stayed in the lobby. They didn't patrol individual floors at night. "Hello," Marcus called out, his voice cracking. "Is someone there?" The footsteps stopped. Right outside his cubicle. Marcus forced himself to stand up and look over the cubicle wall. The office was empty. Completely empty. Just rows of desks and cubicles stretching into the fluorescent-lit distance. But the temperature had dropped. Marcus could see his breath misting in front of him, which was impossible. The building's climate control maintained a constant 72 degrees. A door slammed somewhere in the office. The heavy sound of solid with door closing. Marcus spun toward the sound. It had come from the northwest corner, where extension 1447 supposedly was. Despite every instinct screaming at him to leave, to get an elevator and go home, Marcus found himself walking toward the northwest corner. He had to know, had to understand what was happening. The northwest corner of the 14th floor housed senior partner offices, large rooms with windows overlooking the city. Marcus had been in this area before during daylight hours. There was Wallace's office, Morrison's office, Chang's office, and a wall. Marcus stood before what should have been a fourth office, but there was only wall. Smooth, painted drywall, with a framed photo of the city skyline hanging on it. But now, looking closer, Marcus could see something wrong. The wall was slightly off color compared to the surrounding walls, and there was a seam barely visible, but definitely there, outlining what would be a door. Marcus placed his hand on the wall, and it was ice cold. His phone buzzed in his pocket, making him jump. A text message from an unknown number. Room 1447. He's been waiting for someone to work late, someone to be alone, someone to open the door. Marcus's hand shook as he texted back. "Who is this? What do you want?" The response came immediately. "I'm warning you. I was the last person to work alone here. 3 years ago. I opened the door. I saw what was inside. I barely got out. Don't make my mistake. What's inside? Something that shouldn't exist. Something that's been here since before the building. They built around it. They sealed it. But it's still there. Still waiting. And on certain nights when someone is alone, it calls to them. It wants out." Marcus backed away from the wall, but he couldn't stop staring at that faint seam. A door. There was a door there. Sealed, but still there. His desk phone began to ring. Then Janet's phone. Then another phone across the office. Then another. Within seconds, every phone in the entire office was ringing, a cacophony of overlapping rings that echoed through the empty space. And underneath the ringing, Marcus heard something else. A voice, that same hollow voice, but multiplied through dozens of phones, all speaking in unison. "Open the door. Let me out. Let me out." The lights began to flicker. On off, faster and faster until the whole office was strobing like a nightclub. In the flashing light, Marcus saw something that made his mind rebel against what his eyes were showing him. The sealed wall was bulging outward. Something on the other side was pushing against it, creating a distortion in the drywall, like a face pressing against fabric. The seam around the door was glowing now, a sick, greenish light that pulsed with each flicker of the overhead fluorescence. Marcus ran. He sprinted through the office, weaving between cubicles, heading for the elevators. Behind him, he heard a sound like tearing paper amplified 1,000 times. The sealed door was opening. The elevator seemed impossibly far away. Marcus's lungs burned, his legs pumped, and all around the phones kept ringing, and that voice kept chanting, "Let me out! Let me out! Let me out!" He slammed his hand on the elevator call button repeatedly, looking over his shoulder. Something was emerging from the northwest corner, a shadow that was darker than the surrounding darkness, a shape that hurt to look at because it existed in dimensions that shouldn't be possible. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Marcus threw himself inside and jabbed the lobby button. The doors began to close with agonizing slowness. Through the narrowing gap, Marcus saw it, the thing from room 1447. It wasn't just shadow. It had eyes, hundreds of eyes, all fixed on him, all filled with an ancient, terrible hunger. The elevator doors closed. Marcus collapsed against the wall, gasping, his entire body shaking. The elevator descended, 14, 13, 12, each floor feeling like an eternity. In the corner of the elevator, his phone buzzed. Another text. "You survived. Most don't run. Most are too curious. Most open doors that should stay closed. Leave the building. Don't come back tonight. And Marcus, don't work late alone anymore. Ever." The elevator reached the lobby. The night security guard looked up from his newspaper, surprised. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus wanted to laugh at the understatement. "I'm fine. Just had to finish something. I'm leaving now." He walked out into the cool night air, never looking back at the building. But he knew with absolute certainty, that on the 14th floor in room 1447, that officially didn't exist, something was still there, still waiting, still hungry. Marcus quit his job the following Monday. He told them he'd found a better opportunity, more money, better hours. He didn't tell them the truth, that he'd never work in that building again, that he'd never work late alone again, that every time he closed his eyes, he saw those hundreds of eyes staring at him from the darkness. The audit remained unfinished. Someone else completed it, probably during normal business hours, probably surrounded by co-workers, probably safe. But Marcus wondered about the next person who would inevitably work late alone on the 14th floor. Would they get a warning call from extension 1447? Would they be smart enough to leave? Or would they be too curious about the sealed room in the northwest corner? Marcus would never know, and he was grateful for that. Some mysteries were better left unsolved. Some doors were better left sealed. And some nights at the office should never be spent alone.